Hey everyone, I'm here with Damaly Shepherd, a photographer out of New York City. Hey Damaly.
Hi, Shell. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited about today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, as you just said, I'll say my name again because I love to. My name is Damaly Shepherd. I am a New York City-based photographer. I specialize in working with women, making them feel comfortable, safe, seen, and heard in front of the camera. And yeah, that's really what I love to do. I love working with women who are working on their brands, especially, as well as just relationships. I love, mother, daughter, couples, and of course, the greatest love, the love of ourselves. So just having a fabulous woman owning it and being on camera is one of my favorite things to shoot as well. So yeah, that's like a quick synopsis of who I am and what I do.
That's so cool. I love everything about, so Damaly and I met at a retreat last year. We kept in contact and I just loved her vibe from the moment I met her. And so I'm going to talk to you again. So Damaly, as I've shared with you, from the moment I met you, I just loved your smile and the way you entered the room. And I love that you have a way to bring that out in others. So today, as we talk with, the creative community, share what it's like as you're helping women, because a lot of women that you help are people who don't necessarily walk in already filled with that confidence, right? And you're helping them to learn that and teach them how to be good in front of the camera, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a large part of what I do because I work with, and I don't love this term, but it's probably the most accurate term, but I work with everyday women, women like me and you who are just out in the world living our lives. And so that means that there can be some awkwardness, our feelings, our fear when it comes to stepping in front of the camera. It's a very intimate thing to do. And, we all have our fears around it. Maybe it's your body, maybe it's how you're feeling about yourself. All those things are things that can make you clam up a bit. So I work a lot to make my clients feel comfortable, make them have fun. And with that, we kind of like let all of that drop and we get to capture something really, really special that's in there. Yeah, so that's definitely a huge focus of my work because everyone's like, oh, I don't think I'm photogenic. I don't know about this. And it's like, well, you don't work for a living in front of the camera like the folks that you see in magazines. So of course we're gonna need some more work to get where we need to go, but there's beauty in every single person, so that's definitely a core belief of mine.
I love that. I love how so several weeks ago I interviewed and chatted with Delaney Garrett, who's an aspiring YouTube beauty influencer. And one of the quotes that really captured me from hers is that you're already beautiful. I'm not making you beautiful. I'm
Yep.
just bringing out what's already in. So I love that you said that. I love this synergy of just how everyone in this
Absolutely.
community comes together.
Yeah, and that also reminds me, Lizzo recently had this great quote that was like, I'm not trying to sell you me, I'm trying to sell you you. And that's how I feel about my work. And it's probably it's like, it's not about, anything else outside of the fact that I want you to believe in your fabulous, your greatness, and let that show. So yeah, I love that.
Now you're doing this full time now. So when I met you, you were still a little part time. Now you're doing this 100%. This is your life. Let's talk about that because so far we've had a few full time business entrepreneurs that have been on the chat, but not somebody as a photographer working fully in this creative space. So talk about what that was like inside, because as creatives, yes, we have that let's jump, like, oh fine, a lake, let's do it. And then we also have that part though that because we know what the industry says or whatever, we tend to hold back. What was that like for you, being able to let go? And what kind of team, if you had a team that helped incorporate that movement?
Absolutely. This did not happen on my own, not at all. And so I've been a photographer for over 3 years now. I think now that we're in 2020, closer to 4. And then, really got into business and selling myself and being paid to be a photographer over the last year and a half. And
Okay.
so last year I set an intention that I definitely wanted to end 2019 doing it full time. But I just said it. I was just like, it's what I want. Not really even sure if it's possible or, what was going to happen next. And then I actually, I hired a coach to help me. And she was like, she's like, you're not going to be working there by December. And I was just like, oh, sure, we'll see. And so, in that process of working full time and then coming home and getting into my business, so editing, following up with clients and trying to figure out this crazy world of marketing, it's exhausting, just like, because I was working full time in the day, and then at nights I'm focused on the business side, and then on weekends I'm shooting. So it's just going through the whole week nonstop, and I'm totally fine with that. Loved it at the time. However, there came a time in my full-time role where I think they could see that my devotion was split, and it really came down to like an us or them kind of thing. And that's when I made the decision that I had to take the chance on me. And so I took the leap and I let it go. And I have been full-time ever since, and successfully full-time ever since. So I'm, at the time it's really, really scary. You don't know what's going to happen, but I also had support. I had my family, I had my coach, and those are all the things that were like, you can do this. Like you'll figure it out no matter what. And so I, for the first time in my life, took a chance on myself. And so I'm so glad that I did. Yeah.
That must have felt amazing. I know when I finally said yes to me, it was like just that deep exhale, that moment of, and I still, like, I do work part-time right now for a marketing for a nonprofit, but being able to say yes to me and make choices so that my family is first, and then work comes around it. There are not a lot of corporations that do that. Mm-hmm. So beside the fact that they could see your devotion split, like what kind of decision making went behind, like, it's time to say yes to me?
Oh, so many things. Just like, it was a few things. I have to be honest. I don't like telling half stories. So I feel like when it came to my full-time job, not only was like, them feeling like my attention was split, but there was also conflict there, right? And it's like when it started to feel like I wasn't as happy as I used to be, and then like that unhappiness seeps into your everyday life outside of it. It was like, well, I only have that many options. It's like, of course I can stay here. It would be great to stay and have a paycheck and benefits and all of the good things that come with having a job. But what do I sacrifice with that? And for me, I felt like I had to make the leap because it kept me playing small in my photography. Mm-hmm. So knowing that I had that safety net meant that I could teeter-totter out a little bit at a time into, okay, I think I'm going to raise my prices, and I think I'm going to follow up with these people. But when you go full-time and this is your income, it goes from I think to I have to. And the mindset just instantly changes. So I knew for myself that if I was going to go all in, I needed that kind of fire to do it. And so that was just like, I know that I will make this work. And I felt like I wasn't making it work because I had the safety net.
I totally understand. Yeah, no, fully agree with you there. So a little of my background, when I was working for Big Pharma, and I loved what I did. I had a great team of people I worked with, but I was about 30 and I wanted to be a writer. Mm-hmm. And I'd always been told I should be a writer. You know how it is. People are like, oh, you have such an eye, do photography, Damaly. Well, for me, it was always, man, you're so good with words and community. Why aren't you writing? And so I thought about it, and you look around and it's like everybody's in their big houses, making their big salaries and doing their big things. And I was like 3 years divorced and was raising a 14-year-old and a 6-month-old, 7-month-old, and was just like, if I don't do this now, I'm going to get comfortable in this life. And so I totally can relate, being that I'm part-time now. So half of my devotion is, and I shouldn't say half, because it's more like a third, because I work full-time for myself and then part-time there. But it's like, part of my devotion is towards them and making them better. For me, the reason that works though is I get to keep my skills fresh, because I love marketing, and I don't market authors. I refuse to get into book marketing, because I just love helping people write the book. So as a coach doing that I love that piece, but then I miss the marketing side of it, right? And so here in Connecticut, everything becomes taxable when you get into advertising, and have to worry about it because now I get paid to do that part. And then this part I coach. But I see the huge difference in when I first left that pharma job. And, oh, girl, when I was like, wait, there's a mortgage due. Like, they're not going to accept. But no, I finally said yes to me.
Yes.
Like, that call wouldn't go so well. So, wow, yeah, what a difference. Your smile was already big when I first met you. Like, it lit up a room. And now there's just this glow to you.
Oh,
Like you have birthed this thing that truly was in you all this time. So talk about what you're able to share about some of your upcoming work that you're doing. So you talked about how you help women see themselves more confidently. You said it so eloquently too, like you've got it right on. Talk about like what you do and some of the stuff you have coming up in case anyone is looking for a photographer.
absolutely. It's the thing that I am the most passionate about right now. I actually just wrote a love letter to my ideal client this morning. I'm really hoping to branch out on my personal branding work. So I want to work with women, beautiful women like yourself, who are up leveling in their business, who are doing meaningful work that are changing lives around them. And that is big or small. I don't care if you are, if you are a graphic designer, you're changing the way that someone's business looks and helping taking that burden off of them. So when I say changing the world, I don't want people to think, oh, I'm not doing anything. Like, we are all doing our part to change the world. And so I'm hoping to work with these incredible female entrepreneurs, probably have a smaller team. You are up leveling in your business, trying to get to that next level, and you really want your branding to match all of the beautiful work that you do. And so I am so psyched about this offering. It entails so much fun work. I want to help create images that look and feel like you, so that you look at them and you see the real you reflected in it. You see the kind of people that you want to work with. But I also my motto is that these images need to have a job. And so I want us to talk through what makes sense. What's on your marketing pipeline? Do you have new products coming out? Is there an e-course? Like, what are you thinking about that you're going to need photos for, so that when we have our shoot, we can check off all of those things and give your team tons of material to work with when they're asking you for stuff or whatever it is that you need. So that is my newest offering that I am revamping and putting out into the world. And I'm so in love with this demographic. Of course, it's because it reflects myself. It's how I feel as a woman entrepreneur that hopes to be changing the lives of the women that I impact through my photography. I want to use my gift to also help others. So yeah, that is what I'm focused on right now. And then also I'm working on my own 40 over 40 project. So I am photographing 40 women over 40, and we're going to be creating a magazine with all of their photos and their stories. And that just helps, the 40 over 40 is kind of like the baby passion project that I love, because it is a beautiful demographic that deserves to be seen and heard. And it's just every single woman that I've talked to, I've learned so much. And it's not about like me learning, but they are just so insightful and beautiful. And the stories that they tell, it is insane. Like I've cried on some of these consultation calls. It's been incredible. So it's really been a project that's feeding my soul. At the same time, I get so much back from that as well. So those are the two projects that are top of mind that 2020 is being focused on. Yeah, I'll stop there.
I love it. No, I love it. I love it. I didn't know you were doing a 40 over 40.
Yeah.
Growing up, 40 sounds so old. Like 40 is just, oh my God, by the time I'm 40, I have to have this. And then like society kind of changed, right? And instead of getting married right out of, like my mom and dad got married the day after she graduated. Like it was done. We're done. They've been together ever since.
Yeah.
For me, I graduated and I was like, oh, I'm not married. I was in no place to be, but I full disclosure, I was searching. I was just like, I need to get married, and so I got married at 20 and we spent from 20 to 30 together. It was the most pivotal 10 years of my life, and not just because of what happened. Like it was, we grew up together. Like we weren't even really old enough to drink. Yeah, we might have I was 21 when we got married. I met when we were 20. So we got married at 21. And so from 21, and then we got divorced when I was 31, turning 32. And I think now, I remember thinking like at 30, like, oh my God, I'm not going to be where I want to be at 40 now, where I was all set up for it. White house, white picket fence, great job. Like all that stuff was in place at 30. And so then I turned 40 and it was like, hello? like what the heck happened? This decade changed my life in a whole other way. Since turning 40, boy, the introspection and the way that you start to see everything that led up to this moment and how it truly, whatever your faith structure is, how it truly all steps together. How like that person, you had a conversation. And so like, I remember a poem I wrote back in San Diego when in 99, I was 22 years old. And this homeless guy used to be at the beach. And I would stare at him because, that's what you do. And I would stare at him because he intrigued me. Mm-hmm. Something about him, he didn't look like he should be homeless to me. Mm-hmm. At the age of a 22-year-old's understanding, you're taught certain things about that demographic. And I remember like writing a poem about him. And to this day, I'm like, I wish I could run into him again to show the impact he had, because looking back, he changed my view of homelessness. I got to speak with him and learn his story. And I found out how broken inside this man had become. And it wasn't drugs. It wasn't this, it wasn't that. And we learn more as we go. And I think over 40, I'm learning. I'm 3 years almost into this journey. You start to see all the pieces come together. So I love that you and other photographers are taking this time to say, because we see the 30 under 30 and the 20 in their 20s and all these like other age brackets.
Yeah. And it's so like, I definitely think that sadly we ignore women as the age. It's just like once the proposed viability of what is like sexy passes, then you're no longer interesting, you're no longer meaningful, or you know what I mean? I just like, what is that? So I never believed it. And I also just really want to pay homage to the wonderful women in my life, because I'm from a very patriarchal family. If my grandmother had not, came to this country and worked her butt off to bring up her 6 children and I don't know how many grandkids, like I wouldn't be here right now. It just wouldn't, my life would be completely different if my mother hadn't done what she done and worked so hard, so long, like commuted so far all of the time. I'd say this joke, my mom just retired, and I said a joke at her retirement party, which was that like we lived in Central Islip, Long Island, and my mother worked the same job for 30 something years, almost as long as I've been alive. And she would commute from Long Island all the way into the city. And this was like a 2-hour commute one way. And I was like, wow, if I was like, mom is amazing, because if I were her, I was like, y'all would have starved. Like I wasn't going to do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I just can't. I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm sorry, kids. We're just gonna
hot dogs and mac and cheese, ramen noodles on sale 10 for 10 this week.
No sneakers, no nothing. Like you're not getting anything because I'm not working. I'm not going to do that. And she did that. She did that for 30 something years of her life to support her family. And like, so how can I not feel so much warmth and love and viciousness for this demographic? Because they built me, and if I can be just a fraction of that kind of woman, like I know the impact that I'm going to make on this world is immense. So I love this project. I'm loving all of the women that I've had the opportunity to work with already. And I love that I'm also getting to give something back, because, I just had a client that messaged yesterday that was just like, thank you for reintroducing me to myself. And I was just like, I didn't do that. I mean, I'll take credit, but it's so spectacular that they're also finding so much value out of this experience as well.
Yeah, I think as coaches and as photographers, I think of people in like this, I'm going to call it the service industry for lack of knowing what you would call it, but like personal sort of like hairstylists and nail techs. I miss going to get my nails done every 2 weeks. It was a chance to see her and she made me feel beautiful, and we talked, and it was great. I'm going to get my hair done like every 12 weeks on the dot. My hairstylists know how to make me feel great that day. They know how to bring out what's already, like Delaney said, bring out what's already in. And so
Yeah.
I don't think we realize though, and you're a coach yourself, like you really are, you're teaching people how to look in front of the camera, etc. I don't think we realize how much of an impact we have. When people say that, it feels so weird to be like, I did that. But it is. If we weren't willing to, who knows? I'm a big believer, like when I'm teaching people about their voice, others have your same experiences. We could sit here and both be foster kids and both have grown up in the state system, and we could trade stories all day long about what those homes were like and what the different places were. But our experiences, even though we share them, the voice that we speak them with, the way that we share them, the power that we share behind it, and then the tribe that we are connected to, they are different. There's, I can't connect with your tribe and you can't connect with mine. We may enjoy each other. We may all be able to sit in a room and have a great time at a social hour, but at that heart to heart level, there are people that will only ever respond to us. And I think once we can own that, once we can truly say, you know what, there's people out there that if I don't pull my stuff together and get out there and be who I'm supposed to be, they will never be able to be who they are. And when you start to think like that, and I know for some that's like woo-woo kind of thinking or whatever, but that when you start to realize that, it's not about me becoming great. It's about me rising to a level so we can all rise together. Because if you're great as a photographer and a coach, and I'm great as a coach, imagine when you photograph me and I'm being that coach that next person who never knew about me, all of a sudden they find out about me. And I think that's what we miss. Like as creatives, that's one of the things I love about our community that's missing in others is we all support one another. There is some, I'm not going to say that there's no creatives out there who are like, oh, I need all the attention. But for the most part, we're like, hey, you're a photographer, I'm an author. Let's get together and find out who needs pictures and who needs writing. Who needs to read these books, right? Who do you have that I can meet? Who do I have that you can meet? And then also, I'm not afraid of another author writing my book. I always use that example. T.D. Jakes and Lisa TerKeurst within the Christian market, they both released books last year that went to Amazon bestseller and New York Times bestseller. It is the same stinking book. It's the same book. His crushing and her, it is not supposed to be this way, or it's not supposed to be this way. Exactly the same book, except TD spoke in his way. I say that like we're boys, we're just gonna call him after. But TD Jakes spoke in his voice to his people, and Lisa TerKeurst spoke in her voice to her people. And a whole bunch of people, millions and millions, were able to find solace. I'm a huge T.D. Jakes fan. His stuff resonates with me. I read both of them, but I personally got more out from his because it spoke more. I'm his tribe. I like hers. And again, that's where you vibe with some people, but it's not that heart to heart connection. And so I love that we're able to do that with each other. Something you said that I love is about these women created you. They brought you up into that space. So you talked about like your mom's work ethic and just what she did and the difference. What do you think that you've incorporated from her? Because while your kids would have been starving, they also would have been able to smile on cue, or like talk about some of the things that you see that she's instilled in you because of her willingness to do her work ethic that you've been able to translate into yours.
That's such a good question. I think for my mom, the thing that I will carry the most from her, my mother is the most giving woman on the planet. I'm a preacher's daughter, so my father was a pastor. My mom was a first lady, eventually pastor in her own right. And so we grew up with a church that the focus was on helping the community. So as much as we could, when that church was open, we helped the community. And so I grew up with my mom always talking about supporting other people, and just give free of heart. And for her, she'd give you everything. And so on my own end, I've had to dial that back in because, and I think that's something that she's learning too. It's something that we're able to talk about and teach each other now, because now I'm like, okay, mom, you can give, but also boundaries.
Absolutely.
But I absolutely take that spirit of being caring to other people, whether or not you know them well, whether or not the situation was like, kindness is a huge like core of my family and of who I am. And so I just, treating people well is thoroughly ingrained in me because of my parents, because of who they are, because that's what I saw them do. I saw them put other people for themselves, and I love that. I love that I have that about me. I can tell the difference in other people who don't have that. And yeah, so that's definitely one of the things. For my grandma, she's hilarious, and she also has OCD. Diagnosed, but what I've learned from my grandma is that, like, for her, there's this very specific way to do things, and that's what I
Okay.
when I say she has OCD. Like, she's very precise when it comes to her home, the way that she cooks, and for me, when I was younger, I used to be like, well, why does it have to be that way? And she's like, there's a right way to do things. And so I've been able to adapt that into my own life now too, because it's like, there is a right way to do things. I do have a system that works for me, that I love, that makes the world make sense. And that's what she created for herself too. Yeah.
I love that you said there's a system that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
So many times we watch these people talk and we hear about their systems, and we're like, I'm going to wake up tomorrow at 4 a.m. and I'm going to exercise for an hour, and then I'm going to do my prayers or do my meditation and set my intention to do all this. And it's like 7 o'clock and you're still in bed and you're like, oh, I failed already. You didn't fail. You
No.
just tried to grab a system that worked for somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, as creatives, I think one of the things that so many creatives have in common is like being night owls, getting that like creative drive that, boy, when that muse kicks in, you're just like, it's almost like mania, with people who struggle with bipolar. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, I don't know, because it's like, I don't want to sleep. I want to just get it out. I want to get out what's within me because I'm so excited about it. And, I think that we get so stuck. I did for years, right? For years, I was like, I'm going to read this book and this is going to work. I was actually just sharing on Darren Hardy's page. He's a huge, every one of these, I think somehow he comes out. I just love Darren Hardy. I love his process, how he works, etc. But like one of his systems, I tried it a couple years ago and it didn't work. Like I tried implementing it. It just didn't work for me. Now, 2 years ago, I got to know Rachel Hollis through her books. Like, she's not my girl or anything, just to be clear. Like, I got to read her books, and something that she talked about is having mentors who you never meet in person. And I'm like, that's who Bob Berg, Darren Hardy, Marie Forleo, like, that's who these people are to me. I'm gobbling up everything they say. Bob Berg does these things on endless referrals. And when I first started watching them, I didn't need them. I didn't think. And yet I watched them because it's Bob's video. I want to support it. I want to watch it. Right. But what happened is this year at the end, so from October to the end of the year, Rachel Hollis does this thing called the Last 90 Days Challenge. And it teaches you about these 5 steps to thrive. And each week you really intentionally go after helping your body more, helping your mentality more, going after your dreams, etc. That, in addition to the compound effect and the systems that I've learned through watching Darren Daily, I was able to pull it all together. Yeah. And I'm down 33 pounds now. Thank you.
Wow.
But 33 pounds down. I've revamped my business in a whole new way. I've gained clarity on I get pigeonholed all the time into editor and ghostwriter, and I am those things, but not primarily. That is like, hey, you're my girl, I'll pick up that project. Or, hey, you're my girl and you recommended somebody, I'll talk to them. And if we vibe, then I'll do that. But it's like 1 to 2 people, maybe 3 a year. That's it. I really have been intentional this year on doing those things that are uncomfortable. Those Instagram posts where you talk about why you started and it's like, but I don't want to talk about me on, like, I don't go on Instagram for that. I go for pretty pictures.
Yeah.
How has it been as you've stepped into you and as you've created your system that's worked? How has that helped you and your business? Because obviously you're doing successfully. I'm excited. We're going to work together in October. So yay for that new offering. I'm so glad. So how, how do they work together, and how does that all kind of bring you into who you are?
So the process is ever changing and ever moving. And it's funny because I was having this conversation with my coach yesterday where she reminded me that I'm like 5 minutes in, you know what I mean? Like proverbially,
Yeah.
I'm still a baby in the tadpole of entrepreneurship. Like I've been on my own since last year. And so you forget that when you're just out here grinding, trying to get it. And you're like, I feel like I should be, all the way down there. And it's like, hold on, back it up. You're doing great. You're right where you should be. So sorry, back to your question.
That's okay.
That
was
always
perfect.
changing. Yeah, the systems are always changing. All because I am finding my rhythm. I am still figuring out, what works best for me in terms of my inspiration. Funnily enough, I am not as much of a night owl in terms of creativity. My ideas come to me early in the morning. Like
Okay, so you are the 5 o'clocker.
Sometimes not
Okay.
5 o'clock, but it's one of those things where as I start to open my eyes, like that's when those downloads just show up.
Okay.
Like I absolutely had an outline for a book appear one of these days last year, and it was right at like the 5:45, and I was just like, "Where's my phone?"
Oh, funny.
Like,
See, and I'm like, as I'm closing my eyes.
that's as you're closing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I'm closing my eyes, all of a sudden my brain wants to be like, hey, did you think about this? And oh my God, look at this book title. That would be really cool. And I'm just like, I just want to sleep.
I want to go to sleep.
I just want to sleep. It's already 2 a.m. Please, and especially because I have to be up every morning at 6.
Yes.
So it's like, it's not like I can sleep in.
Yeah.
I used to be able to sleep in on Saturdays, and that became food shopping day. So I'm like, I literally don't have a day I get to sleep in anymore. But yeah, so that's funny. Now, but when they come, is it kind of like that? Is it still just like, I mean, it really does feel like a download, right?
So
Okay.
yeah, sometimes it's that clear. Sometimes it's a snippet. Like it definitely depends, but I'm also an ideas girl. So I always, and so that's for me, it's not about finding the idea, it's focusing on an idea. And that has been the thing that I've had to learn and get comfortable with and committing to, because if you let me, I will have 27 projects open all at the same time, because I love it. And my brain is always just like, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this, I want to do this. So yeah, for me, it's more about like tailoring it back, writing them all down, but also committing to what we're working on so that the follow through is there. That's the thing about like being on your own and setting these new boundaries for yourself and commitment to yourself. That has been awesome, and it's struggle, and you know what I mean, like it's not necessarily always easy to do so, but this is the path, and yeah, this is the path.
Okay. Now that leads me to this then.
Okay.
So you branch out, you have this excitement, you're starting it, and you're feeling like, why am I not already here? And, so you mentioned like through your coach, you're able to dial it back down. What other things, so to the person out there who is not amazing, and we both work with the same coach, so we know how amazing she is. What, to the person out there who's not working with a coach, who hasn't yet committed to that level, and just for the people watching this, like I totally recommend it for everyone. I have 3 different coaches I work with, one on a writing side, one on a physical training side, and one on the business side. And she's so much more than business, like
business and life. I think
I think like the technical title is success coach. Can I say her name? Is that okay? Okay. I didn't know if I know some people don't like to. So Beth Perry, let's throw that plug out there. You guys should talk to her, reach to her. Hi, Bethany, if you're watching. So we both work with Bethany, and that's the retreat we met at. And like you talk about up leveling, she has this way with you that it's your choice. I remember she once said to me, I've moved the mountain. You just need to walk the path. And I wasn't ready to like I walked the path for that moment. And then I tripped myself up because success was scary to me at that time in my life. And I remember standing there, and it's like this moment, I'm a very visual person. And I remember standing there thinking like the mountain's gone and I can't move. But it was because of the work with her that I have that insight. So you take this coach, and this coach is able to come from this outside place and speak life into you, but not everybody is there yet. And there's going to be people watching this, because like the people that watch, that come from that I don't even know. And it's not like I have millions of views yet, one day. But like for reading the blog, I have people that come from all different, like sometimes I open up like my stats and I'm like, oh my goodness, you've gone to India. Like, whoa, yay. And India is like a country on my heart, like that. I will go there one day. But so for the people who can't hire a coach, who don't have the ability at this moment to commit and say, I'm ready for somebody to come into my life, because you give it all out there. Like you are standing naked in front of this person, just like, judge me, help me become better. What would you say to them? Like, what are some things before you made that commitment to yourself that you were able to put into effect?
I think it's definitely a progression. So I feel like when I started my photography journey, I used to be afraid in investing in anything. So like I learned photography through an incredible photography mentor. Her name is Sue Bryce, and she has an educational service that is $30 a month. Okay. And when I started, I was just like, $30 a month? I don't know.
That's my Starbucks habit.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I never felt comfortable with letting go in that way. And so she had like a 7-day trial, right? You know how they do.
Yeah.
And once you get in there, there's like hundreds of videos. And I'm like, damn, there's no way I'm getting through this in 7 days. And I've been a member with her for the last 4-ish years. You know what I mean? Like and it's valuable. So anyway, I guess I say that to say that like, look for the people in your field that are talking about it. And the reality is that we have Google, we have YouTube. There's so much out there that is absolutely free. However, the benefit in actually investing in someone, it doesn't have to be a big investment. There are coaches that range from all over the scale. But the great thing about having a coach is that it dials it into you. You're going to get something specific that is to you instead of just, generic information. And that's definitely the benefit. So how do I help people who can't afford a coach yet? Research, continue to find people that inspire you and lift you up. A few of my favorites off of the top that I feel like have pushed me to where I am is the Marie Forleo. Love her.
Yes.
Her show in itself is just, her YouTube is source after source of amazing inspiration and practical tips on how to move forward in your life. And Marie is one of the ones I found at the beginning of this journey that I think have helped me get where I am. Amy Porterfield, if you're thinking online marketing, if you're worried about marketing at all and you just need some free tips, Amy's show is boundless and full of information. And also a newer one that I've been listening to that I love is called the Life Coach School Podcast with Brooke Castillo. And this podcast, she owns a life coach school. And so she talks through these different concepts. And when I tell you it is mind-blowing, like the last episode, she talked to a coach for women who helps women through their, I don't want to say not midlife crisis. She had a better name for it. I'm sorry. I didn't want to say that.
That's okay.
I give you women who's going through that transition of aging and new things are happening and it's this rebirth and your nest is now empty, and it had all of these like amazing practical tips that even I'm not there yet, but it was just so like fulfilling and into it. So there's so much out there if you're looking for it, and I guess just look for it and then trust yourself. My message is always that you absolutely have the skills to do whatever it is that you have in there, and like Marie says, the world is waiting for that one thing that only you have. So remember that, own that, and build your confidence however you can. For me, this has been a journey of growing my confidence. When I started, I had very little, very, very little confidence. And now I'm just, you couldn't do this without confidence, without me believing in myself. So it's such a good journey to commit to yourself in that growth. And yeah, that's what I would have to say. I hope that made sense. I feel like I took myself around lots of mountains there, but
you totally did awesome. And I agree. I totally second those recommendations.
Yeah.
I just finished reading Everything is Figure Outable by Marie Forleo.
I haven't finished it, but yes, I've been listening to it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I just finished that one. I'm reading right now Shonda Rhimes' Year of Yes.
Love that book.
Was
Love
not ready for that.
And honestly, like that is really the advice. There are books, and books cost like 10 to 12, maybe 20 bucks. But
Oh my gosh, hell, bam. Y'all, bam. So funny story. I'm 5 foot. I say 5 foot when on my license because, 5 foot sounds like small. And so I go in and I knew that my word for 2020 was yes. And so I was looking for books that would help me really step into that yes. And what I mean by that is not saying yes to everything that is offered, but to every opportunity that feels right and hits that goal. Did I lose you? Oh, there we go. Okay. It froze up for a second.
Okay.
And so I did some research because, I don't want yes to become that I'm a yes woman. That's not what my intent is. I want the yes to be, my goal is here in these levels. And I want to not say no to opportunities that can get me there because they're outside my comfort zone or because I don't feel like I have that, like you said, the skills or whatever. So I Googled and I found This Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. And I read on Goodreads the quotes from it and I was like, oh man. So I go to BAM, Books A Million, which I don't know if they're national, but they have them here in New England. And I'm too short to reach way up top where her book is. Now I know that it's going to be 1674 because I've done my research and, well, this woman came by who was not vertically challenged. And I said to her, could you please grab that book for me? The one with the blue cover. Girl, she handed it to me $3.95. It was used. Listen, we have no excuses for not getting better. $3.95. I was able to do that and still get a large Starbucks. Or venti, sorry, not large. Yeah, I agree with you. Books, the podcasts, I'm still trying to get into. For you listen to them a lot?
I used to. So I'm a New Yorker. I used to have a very long commute to work. So I definitely made a home with podcasts. They kept me coming all the while. And I don't listen to them now as much as I used to because I'm not commuting anymore. But when I'm cooking, when sometimes when I'm doing a long hair day wash or something and I'm in the shower, podcasts are incredible. And you can learn about anything that you want to now. There's just so much there.
I have some Angel, who is going to be a guest on February 8th. I'm doing the chat with him. He does this one called The Message with Angel. It's a Christian from a young, I think he would be classified Gen Z, like under 25. He is a battle rapper in the Christian circuit, and then also is a rapper and musician. And so I started listening after seeing him on a battle rap. And I started listening to his podcast, and I love the issues that he talks about because he gets real about those things we're afraid to talk about. And I'm big on that. If we start talking about the things we don't talk about, guess what? People start talking about them because then they talk about, can you believe that they talked about that? And then they start talking, and then you start helping people uncover these things that they've held shame, guilt, whatever for. I have to get better at listening to other ones because I know there's so many good ones out there. I'm so bad about it. I'm so bad. YouTube I put on for music. And when I first thought about doing these, I'm like, nobody goes to YouTube to watch chats. And a whole bunch of people are like, well, you do a podcast. And I'm just like, I'm just getting used to my voice being out there, literally my voice, not my metaphorical. I don't like it. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to hear me. At least see me and see the emotion.
But you're here. That's what's
amazing. And that's what I said. I said, let's do it. Let's get it out there because it's a start. And so to wrap this up, and I appreciate you being here today. I'm so excited. One of my favorite preachers, anybody who's been watching all of these knows by now, is Michael Todd. He's from Transformation Church out in Oklahoma. And he is this young, vibrant, African-American young guy under 30, I believe, or just turned 30, who took over a white church, basically. And the goal was to make it multi-generational, multi-ethnic, multi-everything. And they did that. And then at the end of last year, 20 weeks into the end of last year, they got the keys to the Spirit Bank Event Center. And they now own this $5 million arena that is going to impact Tulsa. And
Wow.
when that happened, they put out this version 1 conference. And his recommendation to people, the whole summary of that conference, which I believe is free online, if you want to go look for it, anybody watching this, the whole thing was start where you are with what you have. So the one thing that we haven't covered yet is, how did you start? Take us back a bit to when I was 4. But how did you start? And then what was the final point from like starting as a hobby into turning it into a business where you were doing it part-time with a full-time job, or full-time with a full-time job, and then coming in now? What were the different points for you? So for anyone watching this who's like, yeah, I have this skill, I love taking pictures with my iPhone or this and that, what was the starting point for you?
Okay, so my story is a bit different in terms of how I started. I did not become a photographer because I had an eye for it or because I liked taking photos. I chose photography because I was in a place in my life where I needed to commit to myself and to commit to an act. So when I started with photography, I was pretty depressed, and I had been working all this time, but still not necessarily happy in where I was at the time. And I felt like I had given up on my dreams. I went to school for communication arts. I wanted to be Shonda Rhimes. Like that was on my list of things. And so I ended up working in tech because, the market was rough and you got student loans to pay and all the other stuff. And I forgot what it was like to dream. And so photography for me was me going on a vacation, and after watching lots of great vlogs on YouTube of all these people doing fantastic things, I was just like, you can do that, right? Turns out I couldn't at the time.
Okay.
Right? So
Honesty.
it turns out I couldn't. I was like, I can do that, but I couldn't. But it reignited in me this need to see something through, to give something my all. And then when I realized that I was solving a problem, which was that, when I took my sister out with me to the park to shoot her, she had an awful time and she felt awkward, and we were both awkward, and it was really difficult. And I realized all the things that happen when you put someone in front of your camera, and decided that that was something that I wanted to help women with. So it turned from I need to finish a project to I want to use now the skill that I've been able to build and help people through my photography. And then I want to be paid to help people through my photography so that I can also live a life that I love and really want. And so it is this whole hurricane of things that I didn't know that was happening. And just like it all came from my own will at the time to be more than where I was. Like I had that voice in the back of my head that was like, you can be doing so much more. Why aren't you? And I had to figure out why. And then I decided to do it because I didn't want, for me, it was like my like mini 30 crisis. This all happened when I was 29, like where I was just like, oh, you're about to be 30. And I was like, I'm not doing anything that I want to do. And that was just like a boulder. And so I was just like, okay, I'm not going to spend the next 10 years doing this. And I changed my life in the next few years. Like I just completely swapped it all out. And so, like I said, not the typical creative story, because it wasn't necessarily about the art. It was about photography helped me find me. And that's what I'm just so grateful for. It helped me find the creative girl that I left behind, because I wanted to be a creative. I wanted to be a writer. I wrote scripts. I did all of that kind of stuff back in college, what I went to school for, and then lost that when I realized that, it was too difficult to be paid for at that time. I also feel like I quit a little bit early. You know what I mean? Like when you're 20 something and you just don't know what's going on and things get pressure. I was just like, okay, I'll go get a job. And, you think you're going to go do both, but having a full-time job now overwhelms you and you just get lost completely into what you're doing. And so photography helped me connect back to who I am as a creative. It can help me connect back to this like force inside that says, girl, you're going to be something incredible. You're going to change your corner of the world. And now I get to work with people who are also doing the same. And I'm just so grateful for for that journey. So anywho, dialing it back a little bit.
Fine.
Huh?
You're fine. Oh my gosh, I'm loving it.
So in that, you know, like photography is like the self-discovery of myself. I went from, you know, just shooting to shoot because I wanted to understand lighting, posing. I was paying that $30 a month to learn it all. And it was great because I learned how to be a photographer through that mentor, through that course that I was taking that I chose to invest in myself with. And then investing in myself then helped me feel comfortable with having people invest in me and being paid to do what I do. So saying that I was willing to spend money on my equipment, upgrades, and you know, on the teachers or whatever. And you don't have to do this to do anything, by the way. This was my own kind of misinformed way of doing it. I thought at the time that I could buy being a photographer, but really it's still all skill. Like I upgraded I was like, I had a cute little kit lens that was gifted to me. And I was just like, man, my photos would look like the greats if I had a full frame camera, right? I was like, that is going to make my work better. And then I get the full frame camera and I was just like, oh, it looks the same. Oh, it's just me. Okay. So
how many of us do that though? Like we think if we buy something like we buy how to write your book in 90 days and all of a sudden we're the best writer in the world.
That's it. Like nothing's going to trump the time and experience that it takes. So you know, those first early years were me hoping that I could buy my way into my craft and realizing that I couldn't. And what got me better, of course, is a combination of the upgrades, but it's my persistency, my continual practice, me not wanting to quit. Like this was my test on not quitting a project. I felt like I had been a quitter. And I'm not going to beat up on myself because we don't do that anymore. But, you know, photography for me was my follow through method. And that's why I was here. That unwillingness to give up on this, that willingness to invest, and then that willingness to do things, even though it scared the crap out of me, like charge someone for my services, even though in my head I'm thinking, who do I think I am to ask anyone for money? Like understanding my value and realizing that, oh my God, I put so much time and work into this and I deserve to be paid for that in return has been like all little stepping stones of the journey that got me where I am. So if anyone is looking for advice, and no one asked me, but I will say that it's all about having a willingness to stick to something and making sure that it's like, make sure that you're sticking to the thing. And then, I lost my thought, but you guys know what I'm saying. Believe in yourself because you can do it. If someone gave you the idea, it's because you can do it. I'm a firm believer of that. So it's like, do it scared. That's what I wanted to say. Do it scared because we're all out here afraid. Every single time I talk to a client, I am terrified. Every time someone chooses to trust me, I'm not always sure. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, they really see that in me. And it's getting better as I've gotten better. But there's always going to be that little thing. So, you know, even Marie Forleo gets afraid when she walks onto a big stage. So just use the fear, do it anyway, because you're worth fighting through that regardless. That's like the message that I always want to scream from the rooftops. Like, you can do this. You absolutely can do this.
I love that. I really love that. We doubt ourselves so much.
We do.
And I love that you're standing here as an example of somebody who said, I'm paraphrasing, but like, I'm tired of not completing something, so I am going to stick with this, because that is a different story. You know, so many of us have like, well, I have this passion for this, so it's easy to stick with. But for you to say, I'm going to stick with this and I'm going to follow it through because that's what we do.
And the passion,
that's how we change. Yes. And now it's, I would have never known.
Now I'm so passionate about this. Like,
you are
my passion.
And you do have an eye for it. You do.
I felt it though. It was work. For me, that was work. You can ask my fiance. We would go on vacations and he's like, literally would be like, you would throw the camera at me and walk away. And now he's like, oh, you've got, like, he used to be the one to take the good photos. And I used to be like, oh, whatever, click. He's like, it's not in focus. It's sideways. What is going on in this photo?
That's my artistic presence.
Yeah, exactly. I had no affinity. I'm telling you, I had no affinity for it. And I think that's probably the message I should lead with. Because it's like, if you look at my work and you think I'm amazing, yeah, this girl didn't know nothing about nothing a few years ago. So anything is possible, guys.
I love that. This is so exciting, and I appreciate you. I have a friend who's a spoken word artist, and when I met him in 2016, oh my gosh, this guy just spits like, and it's intellectual, and it gets you to where you're like Googling stuff while he speaks because it's so good. Yeah. And I remember asking him one day, how did you get here? And he was like, 3 years ago, I didn't know how to put sentences together.
You just have to start. You just have
to start. Yes.
And honestly, don't like Sue Bryce will say, how do you eat an elephant? One part at a time. Like it's like one spoon at a time. So if your goal is something huge, and it should be something huge, don't let that overwhelm you. It will from time to time, but try your best not to overwhelm you. Instead, focus on the next step. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was, okay, how do I put my camera in manual? And then that was, how do I figure out all of the workings of my camera? And then from there, well, how do I make this person in front of me feel comfortable? And now, and it's still something that I'm working on. Those questions have advanced as my, as I have advanced. So these questions are a bit more technical now, or, whatever the frame is, but I still have, much more heights and things that I really want to figure out for photography, for my style and what I want to shoot. But I'm focused on the next step. What is the next step that's going to help me get to where I'm going? Just stay laser focused on that and not the whole picture, and you will get there. You will absolutely get there.
I love that. We're going to wrap up with this one last question that you just opened up.
Okay.
You said that in the beginning, you took your sister out to the park and it was miserable for both of you.
Yeah.
Have you and your sister been back to the park since you've stepped into your confidence?
So not into the park, but we did both I did her maternity photos. And I need to do a side-by-side, actually.
Yes. That would be fascinating.
It is 2 very different photos. And, it's always a process. I'm not a magic bullet. You're not going to completely get over any, inner stuff. This is all about our own inner workings that we're doing. So I don't ever want to give the impression that you're going to come have a photo shoot and instantly never be afraid of the camera ever again. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. However, we do work to help you step by step own it a little bit more. And so I did feel that difference in her, from feeling super duper awkward and clamped up. She was a bit more relaxed. We had a flow together, and she was able to get into it. And that's because I understood what I was doing too. It wasn't, you know what I mean? I always say it's not really your job. When I shot her in the park, I didn't know what to tell her. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to pose her, and I barely know how to use my camera. So I was just like this all the time.
Yeah.
And no focus is on her. So of course they're not going to be great photos. Versus now I understand my camera and my focus is on her and saying, okay, let's fix this. Let's move this. Let's shake it up. Let's, you know what I mean? Like, we do a lot of this during my shoots. Let's shake that whole thing out. Just
nice. Good to know.
So yeah,
shake it.
shake it out always. So yeah, there's definitely a difference in the photos because we both grown as women, and for her it was a totally different time. It was her first child, and it was about honoring that really beautiful space that she was in, and it was just an incredible shoot. And now I can't wait to shoot her and baby now that baby has escaped the nest. Now we'll have a mother-daughter shoot that I'm super psyched for too.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us today and for talking and sharing your heart with us. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so grateful at this opportunity, and I had so much fun. So this is amazing.
Absolutely. Bye, Damaly.
Bye.